Real quick, before we get into the show, I wanted to share a new service called Getita that Ken and I have been using that has made us over $10,000 in Amazon reimbursements. The service requires no monthly subscription, and Getita collects a small percentage of the money they recover for you. It takes less than 5 minutes to set up and works on all Amazon marketplaces. Go to Getita.com, Getida, and enter promo code FTM400. That's FTM for Firing the Man 400 to get your first $400 in reimbursements commission free. How much money does Amazon owe you? Everyone needs to make money. Everyone needs to be profitable, or that supply chain will break. And so I try to keep that in mind when I'm negotiating with manufacturers is you need to stay in business, and I need you to stay in business in order for me to stay in business.
Knowing now we're on the other side of the fence of producing manufacturing products for one of the brands in-house, we know what our other suppliers are kind of going through. And you don't get to that optimum efficiency day one. It takes a lot of time. And so you're definitely earning that 20 or 30% margin by operating that facility and managing a team and, taking on all the risks.
Most people are more than willing to share information with you so long as you're not one of their competitors. And so that is something that it has been a pro tip that really helped us get from zero to, now we're doing about 4,800 units a month.
Welcome everyone to the Firing the Man podcast, a show for anyone who wants to be their own boss. If you sit in a cubicle every day and know you are capable of more, then join us. This show will help you build a business and grow your passive income streams in just a few short hours per day. And now your hosts, serial entrepreneurs David Schomer and Ken Wilson.
Welcome, everyone, to the Firing the Man podcast. On today's episode, we dive into self-manufacturing. Now, about 6 months ago, Ken and I decided to take a leap in our business and start self-manufacturing for one of our brands, and we have certainly learned a lot. On today's episode, we're going to be recapping some of the lessons that we've learned and talk about the future of self-manufacturing. Ken, what's going on, man?
Hey, David. Happy to be in the studio today and sharing this part of our story with the audience. It's pretty impactful, and it was something, that we decided to go down this road. I think it was a challenge. We were kind of like, we didn't really know what's going to happen, but we knew it was the right direction to head in. So, yeah.
Absolutely. One thing I would say about this particular industry in e-commerce, if you were to take a course or you were to take instruction, it is almost default that you're sourcing out of China. And you know what? China has their black belt in manufacturing. I mean, they're very good at it. Their entire country is set up around manufacturing. And so there's a lot of reasons for that. Now, with the pandemic, with shipping costs, with tariffs, we found that it is a little bit less attractive to source out of China. And we decided to take one of our portfolio companies and explore self-manufacturing. And so let's dive into that story. So this would start about a year ago, Ken, when I called you and said, Ken, we have a new spot for manufacturing. You got to come down and see it. And I'll let you take things from there.
Sure. So just so the audience kind of knows where I'm coming from, sometimes, as entrepreneurs, we have these ideas. Some of them are crazy, some of them are wacky, and David and I are no different. And so when David said he's got this new thing, I'm like, okay, let me see what we got going on here. So I showed up, and David says, right back here. We go over there, and there's this it's this big warehouse, it's this big metal building. And David opens the door and says, what do you think? And I look in there, and there's literally piles of just stuff everywhere, like an abandoned building with just piles of storage and things everywhere, dirt floor. And he's like, what do you think? And David's all excited. I'm like, it's great. So yeah, I was like, at first I was like, oh my gosh, what are we getting into? And so now looking back on that from today, I think we've done a great job. David getting it going, getting the building refurbished and all that. But yeah, day one, I was like, holy shit, what are we getting into?
Absolutely. So yeah, there was quite a bit involved in getting things set up. And, we had, and we'll talk about it a little bit later in the episode, but we had no background in manufacturing. I guess I should say you have done a little bit of manufacturing, but this particular product, when it came to like tooling and machines, we had no idea what to do. We ordered 3 machines that we needed to manufacture. This particular brand is in the strapping goods industry. So think straps. We had no idea. The machine showed up and we had no idea how to use them. And there was a lot of learning from mistakes. And so as we were prepping for this episode, we were writing down some lessons that we've learned. And so to start off, number 1, and this is a saying that I really like, 1 is none and 2 is 1. And that speaks to having backups. And since we've had things going, there's 2 people working full time. And when machines go down, it is catastrophic. I mean, it's really a big deal. I had heard a story of Anheuser-Busch, located here in St. Louis. When they have a machine that goes down and their line is shut down, they will use a helicopter and fly to go pick up a part. And I remember hearing that thinking, like, that's absurd. Like, why won't you can get stuff overnighted? Like, that's absurd. But now I truly understand that. And, we've had tooling breaks down. We've had ball bearings go out. We've had bolts break. We've had all kinds of things happen. And as we kind of move to this phase 2 of manufacturing, one thing that we're looking to do is having backups for machinery. Because when the machinery's not working, you're not producing any product. And, you have employees there and you're going to pay them whether things are working or not. And so anyway, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's like that's something that you don't really think about until you're in the process, and then as things break, you really you're reactionary. You're like kind of reactive to it, and so I think over time, as you stress test the line manufacturing facility, you find these like weak points. You can also study and buy backup machines and different things. But yeah, I think this is kind of like, you don't know what you don't know until it happens. And looking back on that now, as a couple of the machines have broken, we've kind of figured out how to get them fixed, maybe get some backups and learn different things. But yeah, it's definitely something that you'll need to think about, pretty early on, and it'll hit you. It'll stop production.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One particular thing that we've done is, our first breakdown was a ball bearing, and this was probably a $5 part, but it shut down the whole line. And when we found a replacement, instead of buying 1 replacement ball bearing, we bought 10. And because, it was our first point of failure, and I can only assume that it'll happen again. And, same thing with like some odd size bolts. When they break, we will buy 10 replacements just so we have them on hand. And my hope is that we will find on these machines a common point of failure. If something's going to break, it's this bolt or this ball bearing. And I want to have plenty of those on hand. Another thing that we are in the process of doing is having a handyman, someone who Mr. Fix-It. And I will say, on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of like measuring handiness, I'm probably like a 5 or a 6. But like there have been some times where stuff's broken. I don't know the first part of fixing it. And so having someone who's really handy that can come in and fix things is, I think, an essential part of this process. So, so anyway, that is lesson 1. Lesson number 2 is that if you are currently buying from a manufacturer, that manufacturer is probably making 20 to 30%, and they're earning that. And I have, when we got into this, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to double our profits, and it shouldn't be a lot of extra work, but it has been. It has been. Those manufacturers, they're earning it. And a couple of things that come to mind are the carrying cost of raw materials in inventory. That was something that previously, when we'd order from a supplier, they would, we would order the exact number of units that we need, and that's all we had to tie up in terms of cash. And, now it is very important that we have extra material and components around just to ensure that we keep the line moving. We've had a couple instances where we run out of one particular part and cannot complete any units until we have that particular part. And so, that's been something that we've observed about this is it's not a cakewalk. And, I also have a new appreciation for our manufacturers. We've got to kind of walk a mile in their shoes. And, I think that's one thing that as people think about supply chain, everyone needs to make money. Everyone needs to be profitable or that supply chain will break. And so I try to keep that in mind when I'm negotiating with manufacturers is you need to stay in business and I need you to stay in business in order for me to stay in business. And so I don't know, any other topics on this?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of you bring up a good point. It's kind of it's almost a sweet science of finding that like middle road of like knowing now we're on the other side of the fence of producing manufacturing products for one of the brands in-house. We know what our other suppliers are kind of going through, and you don't get to that optimum efficiency day one. It takes a lot of time. And so you're definitely earning that 20 or 30% margin by operating that facility and managing a team and, taking on all the risks. Yeah. So I would just say like it's, I think you could also use that as you're negotiating with your suppliers and, you can beat them up a lot, but at some point in time, they've got to make a profit and it's a grueling industry for sure.
Yeah. The last point I want to make on this is I would be lying if I said that supply chain issues during COVID did not somewhat prompt this. I mean, like anyone, we had major supply chain issues. We had products that were out of stock for longer than they should have been. We had boats sitting on the water for 8 weeks back at a backed up port. And our thought was, if we start self-manufacturing, these supply chain issues are going to go away. And what we found is that they don't go away. It's just a different kind of supply chain issue. So previously we were waiting on our finished goods, and now we're waiting on components and raw materials. And so it is not eliminated. However, I would say there's been efficiencies there in terms of supply chain, but we've had to learn, we've tied up a lot of extra capital in excess raw materials just to ensure that we don't run out. And if something is delayed, will we still be able to produce goods? And so that's been a major consideration. So the next lesson that we've learned from this is the raw material manufacturers are your friend. And I'm going to give a couple examples of this. So when we decided to go down this road, we knew we were going to need some type of machine. And, I'll use an example of we were needing a machine to cut strap. And we had no idea what type of machine there was. And, I'll say like typically you just Google it, right? But we didn't find like any conclusive machines that like, this is clearly the best option for us. Now we went to the raw material supplier and we asked them, what do most of your customers cut this raw material with? And they had an awesome answer, and they actually put us in touch with the right people. And, what we found is, finding people in the industry that are working on a different part of the supply chain. I'll give you another example, was searching for a better price on rivets. We use a rivet for one of our products. And, I called a place that specializes in fixing rivet machines. And I said, hey, where's a good place to buy bulk rivets? And of course, they had a laundry list of people. And I'm not in direct competition with them, right? But they fix rivet machines. So of course, they're going to know where rivet manufacturers are and where we can go and find these. And so that's been something that as we figured this out, yes, there has been a component of figuring it out on our own, but we've also asked a lot of questions to a lot of people, and that's been really helpful. And what I found is most people are more than willing to share information with you so long as you're not one of their competitors. And so that is something that it has been a pro tip that really helped us get from zero to, now we're doing about 4,800 units a month. And had we not had some advice from these industry folks, I'm not sure if we would be where we're at without that. So,
yep, absolutely. And one other add on to that is, we've learned a lot from suppliers, manufacturers, the companies that make the tools. And then, David, you took a trip out to one of the suppliers and kind of got a tour around the facility and how they're using their machines, and you've been able to bring that information and the detail back to our facility and optimize the tooling and the machines and the process. I think that's also a kind of a next level tip, is to lean on your, other manufacturers, your current ones, to pull that information, someone that's been doing it for, a couple decades.
Sorry to interrupt the episode. You may have heard Ken and I talking recently about a new tool that we're using for Amazon refunds. Now, I have used other refund tools like this. However, I can tell you in the first 7 days, they scrubbed the back end of my Amazon account going back 18 months and found $5,000 of refunds. And the nice thing about this is it's my money. Amazon made a mistake and they are just auditing my account. The other thing I really like about this tool is there is no monthly fee. They only charge a commission if they are successful in getting you your money. Go to getida.com, Getida, and enter promo code FTM for Firing the Man, FTM400. This is an awesome tool. Can't say enough good things about it. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, that's a great point. And if you're, I'm trying to think of an example. Say you're selling cutting boards and you're dealing with like wood components. Boy, would it be a good idea. And you're thinking about self-manufacturing. Boy, would it be good to find someone that does wood countertops, right? Not a competitor. And call them and say, I will sweep your floor. I will take your trash out. I will do anything I can to ask you some questions. And that I find more and more that is so incredibly valuable. That wood countertop manufacturer may have been in business for 30 years, and the amount of knowledge that they have about the process is incredible. And again, you're not competitors, but you're working on something very similar. And so I think that's something as we move to other types of manufacturing, we'll be looking to do is try to find that mentorship. And I'll tell you that line, I will sweep your floor, really tends to get a good response. People are like, wow, this person, they don't want anything in return other than to me answer a couple questions. And that is so valuable.
Yeah, that's a good line. I have to borrow it.
Yeah. So what next? What do you think is one of the next ones that we've learned?
Yeah. So moving on. So I would say here, one of the things that we've learned is that people are crucial for manufacturing. Building a team, figuring out, who's going to operate that team. And so you don't back yourself into a full-time job. David has realized that along the way of like trying to separate from managing so many things at once. And so that if you're thinking about self-manufacturing, or if you're going down that road, definitely finding the right people, getting the right people in the right places. And so you're not all of a sudden, your time doesn't dissolve into that project, because it's very easy to do. And also people, and I think more importantly is finding good people. There's a lot of people out there. And, now that I look back on over the last 6-9 months, we've had several people that have worked in our facility and for us, and not all of them worked out. I think we're getting better at finding the people that are a good fit for this type of position. And so as you're going down that journey, people are crucial.
There's one particular story that comes to mind that when I think of the right people. So while like the concrete was being poured, we had a small operation going on in my garage. And I'll keep this guy anonymous. We'll call him Mr. S. Mr. S was a retired fellow that I put an ad in the paper. He had responded, and he showed up. And so this is at my house, right? My wife and children are home, and he has a gun on his hip. And you know what? I own guns. I like guns. It's not a big deal. However, I just met this guy. Okay. And I said, Mr. S, can you please put your gun in your truck while you're at my house? And he got real angry and said, well, I believe in the Second Amendment. And I said, so do I, but you need to put your gun away, because I just met you and I can tell you that you won't need it here. Like, this is a safe place. This is my garage. And that particular employee, we butted heads. Every day he'd bring his gun to work on his hip. And every day, Mr. S, please go put that back in your truck. And, ended up kind of going rogue there towards the end, and it wasn't the best fit. But yeah, we've had a lot of stories of that. hiring high school kids. When left unattended, don't always do the right thing. It's been an experience, but I'll tell you what, now that we have found some excellent people, it's made the whole process from start to finish so much more enjoyable, and it's been a better move for our business. And so, the last lesson, and this maybe isn't a lesson, more of an observation, but what I'll say is like, this is awesome. What we're doing, I think, is absolutely awesome. And, everyone likes to be cool. I like to be cool. Probably goes back to, junior high and high school, right? And, one thing that will never go out of style is manufacturing in the USA. It will always be cool. The red, white, and blue will always be cool. And that's something that, as we tell people what we're up to, no longer do we have to say for this particular brand, we're going over to China and sourcing things and bringing it to the US. We are employing people here in Missouri to, manufacture some really cool products. And, there is a YouTube channel that I've become obsessed with called Origin USA. And so this is a company founded by Pete Roberts, and they started out making jiu-jitsu gis up in Maine.
Nice.
And he found a bunch of these old equipment and kind of like brought it back to life. And in terms of like manufacturing in the USA, I think he is iconic. He's partnered up with Jocko Willink, who is also one of my favorites. And, they have these videos. They make leather boots and they show how they make them. And I bought a pair, and they were like $300, but I bought them because I had watched probably an hour worth of content on how they were made. And I, hand stitched and how they process the leather. And it was just, they really highlight the process. And it is a beautiful thing what they're doing. And so, I am proud of what we're doing. And I would say that when we thought about transitioning to self-manufacturing, I was very much thinking about our P&L and, being more profitable. And that has happened. That we have seen those benefits. But what I think has been an even greater benefit is the ability to work with awesome people, to bring jobs here locally, like literally into this. I live in small town Missouri. We are bringing jobs into small town Missouri, and it makes me so incredibly proud. And I feel like we're just getting started. And so anyway, this has been the first 6 months, and we're just getting started. So what do you think, Ken?
Absolutely. And I can see whenever, David, whenever you talk about that, like how much that means to you personally and how much it gets you excited. And, it's one of those things where, everybody, we have to work every day. We have to spend our time doing something. And if you can choose to do something that you love and that you enjoy, it just makes your day better, makes you happier. And so, this project, I can tell, like from day one, it's been a struggle. It's been a learning process. But now that we're kind of on the other side of that, we're kind of ramping up. I can see like it's adding so much joy and bringing something to a community that you live in is like, it's very like rewarding knowing that you're able to give back. Not only are you making great products that are going to solve problems for other people, you're also giving back to a local community. And so I think it is tremendous. We have great relationships with our other suppliers overseas, but being able to manufacture like within our own umbrella, I think is crucial. We can control quality. We can launch products quicker. There's so many benefits of doing that if you can just jump over that initial hurdle of like how to figure it out. But when you're on the other side of that fence, I can tell you it is very rewarding.
Absolutely. Last weekend, we hosted Easter at our house, and we had about 20 of my in-laws over. And generally, I'm fairly private about business and things like that. But when we were done with dinner, I invited them all to drive over to the manufacturing facility, and I showed them what we were up to. And it was very cool to tell them, our foreman, the guy that runs this, he's a Marine veteran and a father of one. And we have another guy, father of 5. They live right here, and they're making goods that we are shipping throughout the United States, but also soon shipping to UK, Germany, Canada. I mean, this is the world headquarters, and it was really cool. And I think they could kind of pick up on the energy, and they thought it was cool too. And so it's something that, to our listeners, if you're selling smartphones, self-manufacturing may not be for you. However, if you can pick off a piece of the supply chain, maybe you're not making the entire product. Maybe you're doing packaging. Maybe you're mixing liquids. Who knows? But if you can pick off a piece of that manufacturing process, it is incredibly rewarding. And I would say that has been my biggest takeaway from this. And so,
yeah, absolutely. And we will give an update at year and a half, and share with everyone where we are then. Who knows? Maybe we have another facility stood up, or more products, or 2 lines, or you never know.
Yeah, we're putting Festus, Missouri on the map, baby. So, all right, Ken, well, thanks for joining me. And to all of our listeners, if you're thinking about self-manufacturing and you have some questions, hit us up. Go to firingtheman.com, click on the microphone, and we'd love to help you out. I am a huge advocate for manufacturing in the USA, and I encourage you to come join the Cool Club because it is cool. We'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's Firing the Man podcast. If you like this episode, head on over to firingtheman.com and check out our resource library for exclusive Firing the Man discounts on popular e-commerce subscription services. That is firingtheman.com/resource. You can also find a comprehensive library of over 50 books that Ken and I have read in the last few years that have made a meaningful impact on our business. For that, head on over to www.firingtheman.com/library. Lastly, check us out on social media at Firing the Man and on YouTube at Firing the Man for exclusive content. This is David Schomer.
And Ken Wilson.
We're out. Before you go, we wanted to share a new service that Ken and I have been using called Getita that has made us over $10,000 in Amazon reimbursements. The service requires no monthly subscription, and Getita collects a small percentage of the money they recover for you. It takes less than 5 minutes to set up and works on all Amazon marketplaces. Go to Getita.com, Getida.com, and enter promo code FTM400. That's FTM for Firing the Man 400 to get your first $400 in reimbursements commission free. How much money does Amazon owe you?